Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Deep Thoughts. It's slightly windy outside. Shooting chemtrails a little bit today. It's been a while since I've been able to do an episode because I was out of the country for about 10 days. On business. Definitely good to be home. So I got all these ideas, all these amazing suggestions from you guys, and I'm going to try to make Season 4 as much your suggestions as humanly possible. And the only time I will not be able to get to your suggestion would be if I already have done it or I can't figure out a way to do a whole hour around it. But today we're going to talk about something I'm going to call Faux Justice, which means fake. Now, this has been going on for a very long time, way beyond any of our lifespans. But now, as we are bringing justice to many corrupt factions in this world, it is extremely important that you're aware of what I'm about to tell you. Because people, I think justice is about to fall like a hammer. I think we've already seen some amazing things. QAnon predicting not only the day, but the exact minute that John McCain was pronounced dead, supposedly. It's like 4:28 in the afternoon, 30 days after a post that said he's going to meet his end in 30 days. He's going to be in the kill box in 30 days. And the post was posted exactly at the same time that he died 30 days later. I mean, it's just unbelievable how real this is getting. Now, again, they could be fiddling with boards and changing timetables on previous posts, but everything is archived heavily and screenshotted. So if there's any finagling with numbers, the whole thing would come down quick, right? What's that have to do with faux justice? Faux justice happens in so many different ways, but it's the exact same formula at all times. What happens when someone is caught stealing or killing someone or raping someone or doing something horrible? I mean, really, at that horrible level, society wants them to be taken out because they are going to probably repeat their behavior. And we don't want them to do that because eventually it'll come back to us. And empathetically, we understand the value of do no harm because we understand what we don't want to have happen to us, right? And so we want to have proof that the person or persons involved in a particular crime of a particular type receive punishment that we believe is congruent with what the damage they did, right? Yeah, some of those, just to digress for 1 second, some of these punishments, it's hard to get the layman to understand some things. If someone sticks a knife in your neighbor and your wife and she dies, then you know the ultimate capital punishment in return for that, which is you took a life, now you lose your life. What I think is hard is people peddling like really hardcore drugs, not marijuana, but like bags of heroin, bags of cocaine, one bag of cocaine, one bag of heroin, especially heroin, can utterly destroy lives. Coke is now usually in crack form, destroys life. So one little cellophane bag is destroying potentially, with the little rocks in there, dozens and dozens of lives. And so when you hear people getting arrested for drug possession, or not possession necessarily, but drug with possession with the intent to deal, society doesn't understand these 10-year sentences, 20-year sentences against that. Now, weed, give me a break. If putting someone in jail for owning weed makes any sense to you, then you should prosecute everyone who owns a beer, But there is a way for people to get completely out of any criminal prosecution through this faux justice techniques that I'm going to share with you. And you've seen them your entire life, but what's really fascinating is I will sit in rooms with guys, who are from their 70s down, and they've never put it together. It's amazing. They've never added, 1 + 1 and said, holy crap, you're right. This is fake justice. There's your setup. Now here's your punch. Now we're going to discuss each individual enactment of this whole thing. When you see a Senate hearing where they're chewing out somebody like Lois Lerner, who ran the IRS under Obama's camp and chased all the conservative groups, just splitting hairs and making sure everyone was being punished, that's fake justice. When Strzok, the douchebag with all the text messages, gets pulled into the Senate and, oh my God, did he ever act like some prancy little princess? That's fake justice. Now, you might be hip to that one. Let's keep going. When you see a show like The Daily Show on Comedy Central, where everything's pretty much an opinion piece, straight to the camera, it's dialogue, it's been crafted to turn everything into jokes, but every once in a while they'll break and they really rake someone over the coals and really expose what they did on TV, and everyone laughs. That's part of the fake justice system. When you hear a talk show, talk radio in your car radio, and you're hearing someone bring it up and they're so angry and they're literally just on the verge of cursing on the air, and they got you all riled up, and they have all these guests on who are other politicians, maybe even law enforcement in some cases, and they're all in agreement. Fake justice. If you go to Barnes & Noble or your local bookstore, digital or analog or whatever, and you see a book that is taking them to the cleaners, Roger Stone's books on the Clintons, taking them to the cleaners, right? Books on Obama or whatever. Books on Trump. And you have to have a crime. All of that, including op-ed pieces on the news, where maybe Lou Dobbs goes nuts or Rachel Maddow goes nuts, maybe even attacks their own party. It's faux justice. But why is this faux justice? The formula has been carefully designed and carefully orchestrated, and the Senate is your absolute pivotal moment where this is actually done. I got a fucking car alarm, a helicopter, and a goddamn ice cream truck going off all at the same time. Holy shit, let's see if we can get a fourth in here. The Senate hearing is where you really see it. Which is to say, look at how much we're going to rake these motherfuckers over the coal. You don't need to worry about these criminals anymore, people, because the Senate is on it, right? Look at what we're doing. We have them on camera on C-SPAN. Trey Gowdy has given them a colonoscopy up to his elbow. And they're just duking it out, man. That son of a bitch, that, whatever, call them whatever names you want. They're getting it, the third degree. The reality is they're walking out of that fucking room and not a goddamn thing is happening to them. Lois Lerner, who sat there and pleaded the fifth like 55 fucking times or something. Unbelievable. Still is free. Committed absolutely egregious fucking crimes using the Internal Revenue Service, which is a bullshit organization invented by the 16th Amendment of the Constitution by the motherfuckers who wrote the 16th Amendment so that they could take all of our money. Corporations used to pay all the taxes in this country. Now they pay none, and we pay everything else. It's a way that they get themselves expunged, removed from all the eyes of the people, and they walk scot-free. And because we buy this paradigm as true justice, in our brain, we feel like we've been satiated in our chest. Oh my God, I saw that Strzok guy. He got it. He got what he needed. Of course, the libs are sitting there on the other side going, look at how he defended himself. Doesn't matter, though. At some point, someone you dislike will be in that seat getting, heavily questioned. Man, ask anybody in jail with a life sentence if they'd trade a life sentence for being heavily questioned on TV. How does talk radio help? Well, I used to live in the Bay Area, which is San Francisco, California, for those of you who don't know that reference. And, they'll tell you how virtuous they are and how tolerant they are, but they are the most vocal haters of all things on planet Earth. You got people who hate gays up there, which just blows your mind. Again, I've never seen more homophobia and hate crime shit going on than when I was in San Francisco. But they're extremely political. All of their radio stations are just like pure fucking battery acid. And it's not like every town, every big city doesn't have one of those, but Jesus, up there it was really palpable. You just could close your eyes and hit seek on your radio in the 90s, and man, you'd just bump into something going crazy. But let's just say that the President of the United States, or some person who shouldn't be committing crimes, is committing crimes, getting caught for things like Clinton, pulling his dick out in front of everybody, among other things. And you feel like, oh my God, or is our leadership really losing it? And of course, if the community that you're in is a general supporter of the President of the United States or whatever, it's easy to pick on these individuals because they're so high up in the country. And this is where the layer of bullshit happens. Then if you turn on the radio and everyone's yelling at that person, then you feel satiated that something is occurring. Well, I can go to bed because people are taking care of it. Sometimes that happens. And sometimes these rallies and these radio stations actually get, like a governor to lose. We had a governor in California named Gray Davis who was blamed for a ton of shit he had no control over. One of the big things was the brownouts, the power brownouts that were happening in California, and we were being sanctioned in California about where we bought our power. We were trying to buy clean hydroelectric power from Canada, and there was some injunction from the White House to say we had to buy U.S. Enron power, and they charged us 40 to 50 times as much for the power. We caught them with, audio recordings with conference calls talking about how they were jacking up the power and how they were making power plants go down for maintenance. I mean, it was a cabal of cabals that has come and gone, and no one fucking remembers it. And it's because of this faux justice, the reason why Enron not only disappeared from, people's stock portfolios and their 401ks and screwed everyone over, but the actual crimes that should probably put several employees into prison for the rest of their lives, they're all free today. Because talk radio made it feel like somebody was going to do something. Well, surely somebody's going to get fucking prosecuted for this. Look how angry, or listen to how angry people are on the radio. Look at C-SPAN. Look at Trey Gowdy. He's going crazy. All I got to say is if you're a senator and you're participating in these faux fucking kangaroo court things and you're not really pressing charges in the end, then you're aiding and abetting and colluding with those that you're yelling at. You are. Now, granted, sometimes individuals don't have the power to even bring up the notion of pressing charges. Like a talk radio person can't go do a citizen's arrest on an Enron executive necessarily. So we do have to have people of the given authority to be informed that there perhaps is a criminal charge that could be filed. But that's where we work together as a society to correlate our information to say, is this a crime or is this not a crime? Hey, if it's not, and we just simply don't have a law to protect this particular little loophole, okay, well, shame on us. Second time, shame on them. But let's get that law passed, right? There's always loopholes. Mafias used to find them back in the 40s and 50s. Now government agencies find them, help their buddies out, their cronies, insider trading stuff. Sometimes these books will come out. I think I haven't read any of Oliver Stone's books all the way through, but definitely taken some pages out and read through, and he's very vicious in his book. He's pretty thorough. I've got tons of books in my house about the Croatian drug traffic in the KLA. I've got books about the coup of Russia Michael Rupert's book, Crossing the Rubicon. These books are exhaustively documenting global crime, international crime. Savings and loan scandal, which John McCain was a big part of. He didn't go to jail because he was a senator. They said he didn't, intentionally collude with the biggest Ponzi scheme guy out of Arizona. But he and four other guys were involved with literally one of the largest savings and loan scandals. Now there were tons of those scandals going on at the time, but he was part of one of the biggest ones. Never served any time. But had they caught him and someone said, we're going to have to press charges on you, or we're going to have to at least get the public to think that we've done something, he would have ended up in a Senate hearing, said he doesn't recall 50 times, maybe plead the fifth 2 times, and leave. What are the other elements of these Senate hearings? Because Senate hearings are where it becomes complete bullshit. And what I need you to do from this point on in your life, in your country, or in this country, the United States of America, is when you see these things, you need to call bullshit in the room to anyone who's an adult who can hear. Obviously children know, but you can even tell kids, hey kid, see what they're doing here? It's all fake. It's all fake. No charges pressed. These people are going to walk away free, but we know they're guilty, and they're sitting there talking about the individual points of their guilt. But the other thing they do is they bring these people into a Senate hearing, but they don't put them under oath. For those of you who are unfamiliar with exactly what that means that if you tell a lie under oath, then you are now perjuring yourself, meaning you're officially deeming yourself a liar, and criminal prosecution can be put against you if they believe the lie is obstructing justice. Now, you would never want to go in under oath without an attorney, without some general idea of what kind of questions you're going to be answering so you can prepare your answers. Like I said in a previous episode, the censorship episode, you got to be very careful ever talking to any government agency under oath, because if you so much as get a single fact incorrect, they can use that to say you're a liar, and they can start pressing charges on you. And it could be as petty as, what day did you take your clothes to the dry cleaners? What day did you pick them up? If you do not know the answer unequivocally, perfectly, you need to say, I don't know the exact answer. I think it was this, but it could have been that. A lot of times these question sessions are soft-handed. You've heard the old phrase, a softball question. It means that the question really doesn't get at the meat of anything. A lot of times Senate hearings are meet and greets. A lot of times it's people coming in and saying, well, thank you for serving your country. Okay. No, that's what I do. I try to serve it. Okay, great. See you later. All right, bye-bye. Nothing ever happens. No meat is ever found on the bone. When they do closed sessions, oftentimes there's no transcript of what is asked and what the answers are. They'll cite national security or some other horse shit. After 9/11, there were a lot of hearings. And I think you'll remember that Dick Cheney and President Bush, George Bush Jr., went in and talked to the Senate and these other intelligence committees and what have you, but they said, I will only go in if it's not televised, not transcribed to the public, and if I'm not under oath. Well, Jesus, okay. What the fuck is the point of the meeting? You can lie, you can bullshit, and nothing has to happen in the meeting, right? But the public, especially the more official story, these sort of baby boomers are, they'll tell you, oh, well, they had hearings about that. Nothing came out of it, so there must not be any crimes because that's my hero up there, Some of you will be old enough to remember the Iran-Contra affair. You had it feels to me like it was a pre-existing program that was well in effect by 1980 when Ronald Reagan took the office of presidency. Maybe he took that in 81, but he got involved. He took over the job of Supreme Commander of the United States, right? And there was this guns for money thing going on, drugs for money thing going on. Was it guns for drugs and drugs get sold, you know? And Ronald Reagan went in there after Ollie North went up there. I mean, Ollie North is so fucking involved with this, it's crazy. He's like the kingpin of the entire fucking project, and he never served a day in jail. You got talk show after talk show because they just reward these guys for keeping this shit going. Book deal after book deal. Poor Ronald Reagan's walking in there going, you know, Jesus, it's bad enough I'm not even president, even though I am president. I don't run anything. They shot me the second I investigated the Federal Reserve, or at least faked that, and then told me this shit's going to go down for real if you don't ease off, dude. But he has to sit there and say, I don't recall, because that's the defense. It's a soft way of saying, I'm not going to tell you what you want to know. And everyone can forget, right? It's a biological thing. I can't remember. Ronald Reagan became president, I believe, at 70 years old. So now he's in his 70s and he can just lean on dementia, which supposedly he died of, to not have to serve any crime, right? I believe it was 2003 here in the United States, in Santa Monica, California. We have a pier, where we have a promenade where cars aren't supposed to go. People, you know, it's all blocked out by these big cement pillars. But somehow this old man, 80-something years old, starts plowing through fucking people. I think he killed 8 people and injured dozens and dozens of people. When he got out of his car, someone yelled at him and said, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he said, "Well, you should have got out of my way." This dude never served a day in jail because his family, said that he was crazy. Said that he was getting so old, he could drive a fucking car. That's okay. I'm sure he has license pulled after that one, but they just said, oh, he's an old man who just, had a bad day driving. It's like, The guy gets out of the car and says, well, you should have got out of my way, is an asshole that should die behind bars. Period. And any family members got people that are driving past their age of, cognitive awareness should think about it. Well, the guy if grandma goes crazy, then she's going to end up in jail and she's going to die in there. So let's take away our license before that happens, right? Again, faux justice, right? So what happens with comedy shows? Why are there so many goddamn comedy shows out there that are politically oriented? Well, your first assumption is probably correct as well, which is it's to curve narrative, right? It's to create narrative and to, say, hey, we're cool over here. You're laughing and we're sarcastic and we seem so brilliant over here. And so you should come our way because, hey, there's nothing to worry about. Don't worry about pedophilia in Hollywood. Let's have Sarah Silverman on to make a bunch of really racy jokes about raping children, and then it'll be okay. But there are rants on these shows, aren't there, right? It's another one of these things of we have to synthesize the idea that we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore from all these different eras. All these different arenas, right? If they're doing it in the Senate, there's books being written about it in Barnes & Noble. I turn on my radio and they're yelling about the same exact thing. And The Daily Show or shows like that are yelling and screaming about it. Well, I think we've got it, right? In fact, I'm even tired of hearing about this. That's another good algorithm. I don't want to hear about Barack Obama being born in Kenya anymore. How many times have you heard that one? I don't care if he was completely a fucking illegal president of the United States, right? Sent to Harvard by one of the most evil fucking princes in Saudi Arabia. So what do we do about this faux justice? Because it's continuing and it's going to continue until we call it out. Well, the narrative that we have to start creating between us, and I hate to even use that word because it seems fictional, but the dialogue that needs to start surfacing is the dialogue about this particular subject. You can probably do a much better job articulating it than I can in terms of saying Senate hearings are complete bullshit. If it does not lead to fucking charges that they discuss in the hearing, then don't have it, because you're all getting paid to do something that is complete bullshit, right? You're wasting Americans' money, or whatever country you live in. Again, the British Parliament, under David Cameron, who I will mistakenly call James Cameron from time to time on the show. I do apologize. Nothing against Mr. James Cameron. Quite the opposite. But David Cameron sat in front of the British Parliament when asked about the sexual charges of pedophilia by one of their head cabinet members, their head parliament members, I should say. He refused to answer the question. And he just sat down with his little notepad, and they harumphed, right? Just like Blazing Saddles, they harumphed and harumphed. And he just sat there and was like, isn't it nice that you can't do a goddamn thing about it? I told you how it's going to be, and that's the way it's going to be. Because I visited the Queen earlier today, and she told me what to say. And then you think in the back of your brain, well, maybe that guy got justice anyway. That, David Cameron didn't want to go out there and embarrass the country that they have allowed, unfortunately, someone from Parliament to get this far into boy touching. But then the case, like I said in a previous episode, they assigned it to his sister, the judge, or whatever it was, the guy who had the charges against him. They appointed his sister to head up the investigation, and she dropped all charges. Dropped the case altogether. Guy got away scot-fucking-free, right? Jimmy Savile died having done everything that he wanted to do. Never paid for anything. And that's typically how they orchestrate it. Well, they're on to Prince Andrew and his visits to Lolita Island. And no one knew what a Lolita Island was until QAnon came around. And then, now we all know. And so Prince Andrew is starting to look really bad. We got photographs with him with young girls, with his wife in the background. That young girl ends up showing up with Bill Clinton, the rapper Eminem, a bunch of folks. She seems to be this little doll that gets passed around between these guys, right? But they look at his lifespan, they say, well, he's 60. All right, well, we can keep it going for 20 years, right, with the attorneys from the royal family. Yeah, sure. And they can't press any charges because he's royalty, so there you go. They can talk about it. And they get to die, having never worried about any of this stuff. When you start a private sector business, you will find that it operates entirely different, almost the complete antithesis principle of a government business, which is why government health care doesn't work, and government regulations and government bureaucracy never works. Because in government, you simply get paid for existing and doing a bare minimum job, and in some cases, not even showing up to work. And this goes for state-funded colleges, state-funded everything. Now, can you get fired in these institutions? Yes, but it's really tough. Our president of the United States, Donald Trump, had to pass an executive order allowing government agencies to fire people because of incompetency, because incompetency was not the grounds for firing people. Unfucking believable, man, that he's having to clean up this mess and take a bunch of shit at the same time. But in the private sector, what happens when you don't perform? You get fired. Maybe you get warned if your employer's pretty cool and they're like, well, I can see it in you. I think you're just a little misdirected, misguided, and unfocused. Let me get you focused, right? Is that better? Is this better? Is that better? Is this better? Right? Boom. You get a second chance. If you're ever in that situation, take advantage of the second chance, please. Nobody wants to fire anybody. You don't want to ever tell anybody that they're fired. And two, you don't want to have to, right in the middle of crossing a river, find another horse to jump onto, right? But if a Senate hearing was transformed into a conference room meeting at a private sector company, so if this became a conference meeting in a company, and we started bringing out all the issues that are broken within our company, and someone has really committed egregious acts against the company, embezzled money, stole property, failed to do their job, You know that in the private sector, that person gets reprimanded or fired. And potentially, if they broke the law, there's criminal proceedings. There's action. Because in a private sector world where reality fucking matters, a company has to survive. It has to defend itself. When you see a nation looking the other way constantly for all these egregious crimes, some of which, a guy being a pedophile on the side in England, that is a personal issue that needs to be dealt with because it's the worst crime in the world. And then on the government side, when people are doing a pay-for-play situation where every single senator has a foundation. If any senator in America, congressman, House representative, anyone has a foundation, that is the bribery mechanism for them to take money on the side. But the biggest thing is that people don't understand government. And they love it that way. Committee structures, law in general is pretty mysterious to people, right? But does law have to be so mysterious? Does it really? Now, how many times in America have you seen the shows where you have like Judge Judy, or the People's Court, used to be called initially? It's small claims court. The way the show really works is that you go in and you sign over all of your rights to a Hollywood stage, and you're willing to accept the verdict of the judge, who's a real judge. But you'll find out really quick that people think that there are laws that don't exist. I am going in for money and rewards for damages on something that is not prosecutable, because we haven't developed laws around certain things that do hurt people. But small claims is very interesting because it's sort of an interpretation of the law at that moment. When someone says, well, I loaned this person $500. They said they'd pay me back. I barely had the $500 to loan them. They're my cousin, they're my brother, they're my girlfriend, my boyfriend. And they ran off with the cash. So I'm just trying to get a payment plan worked out or something. I need a judgment. And the judge can say, well, you really didn't follow any protocol. Do you have a contract? No. So it's kind of a handshake. Yep. Mm-hmm. All right, well, you really don't have what you need legally. But I'm going to go ahead and side with you, and you owe this person $500. The law obviously exists for a very specific reason, attorneys. Because if we all went into court and just said, I don't like this person, I think this is a crime, and you constantly have to say, that's not a crime. Colluding with the Russians, colluding in general, isn't a crime until you actually break the law. I don't even know, is it illegal to sit in some back poker room and plot to rob a bank? But you never actually buy a gun, you never take any action on your plan. It's just a bunch of pieces of paper on the table. Is that a crime? I don't know. Seems like it would be, but maybe it's not, right? But now we have the internet, right? We have the internet where we have knowledge databases where you put in what you're looking for. I own a Windows 10 machine and I can't get audio to work. Go. And a bunch of things pop up. And none of them actually help you, probably. But at least there's some sort of system. But the amount of times I've talked to my attorney buddies and said, I got a friend of mine and this is the circumstance, ... and they just go, oh yeah, that's totally illegal. And there's a bunch of cases like that. Or, that's nothing. That's bullshit. Suck it up. Go away. It seems like because they can answer these questions swiftly, and we've got medical databases online where people go, hey, I got a rash, my heart's palpitating, my hair's turning red in one socket. They'll come back to you and say, okay, well, it could be many things, and don't take this as, a medical recommendation of any kind, but at least when you go and see your physician, you have a little bit more idea of what could be wrong with you. Good. There's talk shows, right, where lawyers have shows, and you call and you pitch things and they tell you what you can and can't do. And I'll tell you what, KFI Radio, it's kind of a conservative radio station here in Orange County, California area, probably Los Angeles, but I forgot the guy's name, but I tell you, I want to say 9 times out of 10, it's not a crime what these people are calling up for. They're just angry and they want revenge. We've all been there, right? Why go down that little rabbit hole? Because if we're to actually demand something of our representatives, and they're to listen to their constituents, there's a barrier of knowledge between us. Obviously, someone who's been on the Hill for 5 years, probably even 2 years, is well acquainted with the labyrinth that is the Hill in at least the United States of America. I'm sure your respective countries are as complex. They know that when they talk to their constituents at some rally, unless they're talking to an attorney or a former senator or a former politician, the idea that they're going to be able to have a productive conversation between the two of them is very tough. They don't speak the same language. Your humble narrator right here has no clue. All those committee structures in the Capitol building, I have no clue how that works. I mean, maybe I have a clue of generally how crazy and complex it is, but I am at less than 1% probably of 100% of knowledge of how all that works. How even a Senate hearing occurs, what happens afterwards. But I can tell you just from my layman's view of this, these people walk away scot-free constantly. James Comey's a free man. Is that unbelievable? The guy, well, the other thing too that you need to know that I've heard recently, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I was in Australia recently and I read an article from their perspective of our situation with all of this corruption in the FBI, and they said that these people are taking plea deals to get out of the crimes that they committed. And most foreign countries of the first world nature do not have plea deals because it allows you to walk away from your crime. And there's no, and I guess foreign countries, European, maybe even Australia, the article was definitely claiming Australia does this. They said, we don't do that. You got to pay the crime. Pay the price for the crime. What a novel idea. There's a famous goddamn case, and you need to look this up, the Podesta brothers, who did the same crime that Bannon did, but they did it 10 years longer and made probably 10 times the amount of money. They got their record expunged and immunified because they were allowed to finger one of their own employees in their corrupt company and take a plea deal of immunity for their own crimes of their own company's very foundation. And if that doesn't make any sense to you, let me give you another analogy. You're a big drug cartel dealer in Colombia. You sell metric tons of cocaine. Now, I don't know if it's illegal down there to do that, but seems like they have a war on drugs. Haha. But it would be tantamount to them turning in a little petty dealer, perhaps in America. That guy goes to jail. They take a plea deal. And they're no longer ever, because of double jeopardy in America, where you're not allowed to be charged for the same crime twice, you can never be brought up on charges for your original crime. Wow. That's like raping a bunch of kids, and you turn in some little petty guy in your neighborhood for looking at maybe pictures of it. That's still horrible. That guy goes to jail, and you're completely immunified from all of the actual child rape that you did. That's why plea deals are a bunch of bullshit. Plea deals they're portrayed on television as this sort of noble thing that a criminal will do when they flip. But in the end, and in fact, if you watch the lockup shows on Netflix, plea deals are like 50% of the settlements, right? They plead guilty and they get a reduced sentence. But when you get up high enough inside of our government, you get away scot-free. You get full immunity, right? You don't get any charges of any kind. Or maybe you do, but there's no time. Maybe there's a bunch of probation. When you're a millionaire and you get probation, that basically means nothing. An analogy you could think of would be a brick wall. The bricks would be justice and the way of your country, and I'd say the American way in my country. But the mortar would be the action that needs to take place the fabric that sews it all together to make it have a strength to it, right? Take a brick house and remove all the mortar in a flash, some Harry Potter spell, and what's going to happen to the house? It's going to fall down. Well, the walls of justice, when you move up high enough and you get into these faux categories of justice, as mentioned in the beginning of this episode, you don't have justice. You've got an apparition of justice. Society for so many decades has been allowed to sit on their hands, right? And honestly, that should be possible if you put something together. It should just work. A system. Unfortunately, the criminals are always awake, always being devious, and always conniving. And there's probably two different intents. One is to be super lazy. After you get the criminal machine going, you take advantage of all the loopholes. It becomes a machine for them to make money, which gives them power. The other one is you have devious people that simply want to watch the world burn. They need adrenaline. One of the situations you have to be made aware of is once a rich man finds out he can't buy heaven, he brings hell to earth. He brings hell to earth. I'll say it again twice. Once a rich man can't buy heaven, he brings hell to earth. That's the mantra of a sociopath. Let's just say you got completely wealthy beyond your wildest dreams. You have an inexhaustible bank account, but you're not married yet. Maybe you're kind of a weird person. Maybe you're an asshole. Maybe you look strange, whatever. And that angers you. You're like, man, I was told if I had a ton of money, happiness was around the corner. Wouldn't have to work anymore. I could travel the world. I could pay people to sleep with me, whatever. I could drive all the fancy cars. But in the end, that all wore off really, really fast. It's that Twilight Zone where the bank robber goes to what he thinks is heaven, and he gets everything he ever wanted. Women, money, gets to go to casinos, he lives in a mansion, and eventually he realizes he's in hell. Right? So the key problem with socialism, as most of you know, is that there's always that layer of rich man who is trying to make the world burn. And they have power, and they have money, and they can influence people, right? The problem that we have in our world is that we believe that there's special people that run countries, special people that run your neighborhood. And there are special people that have that chieftain gene. I think it's recessed in every single human being. I don't think that government jobs look appealing to anyone because of the bureaucracy and the bullshit and the crime that goes on. No one wants to come out of a life where they're living sort of a very rewarding, I chose this for myself life to go into government service and deal with all the 10-year senators that own the place, right? In America, we call them the super PACs, right? You have Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and all the fuckheads. They own the place. They've been there for 30 years. You try to walk in and get anything done, they're like, oh, you're not going to get anything because you need a committee to get that to happen, and we have to approve your committee into existence, and therefore it's never going to happen. Or you can have your little committee, but nothing's ever going to happen because we're never going to allow you to draft your law, or you draft your law, we're never going to vote on it, or we're going to vote it down because it messes with the global agenda of what we're trying to do, or mine goes first, then yours goes second, and mine's going to take 20 years to get through, so if you're still alive when yours is ready to go, good luck. It's like tax code. It's too complex for the average human being to understand. It's like law. It's too complex for the average person to understand. But you are supposed to follow all the rules for your taxes, and you're supposed to follow every letter of the law of which you don't know exists. Now, thank God most of us don't travel in circles where the laws that we would accidentally break are available to us much, right? The world is a wonderful place. Outside of all these paradigms, I want you to remember, it's a wonderful place. I mentioned this a long time ago, I think in season 2, but maybe once in season 3. There's a video game called Fallout. It's a post-apocalyptic world. It's in its literal form is a hideous place to be. But it's post-apocalyptic. They had a nuclear war in the 50s, or at least it's kind of frozen in that sort of nuclear era. The world was decimated. A bunch of citizens went and lived in vaults, and a bunch of citizens were outside because they didn't buy the policy to live inside vaults. So the people outside mutated into ghouls, which look like zombies, but they can still talk. If they sit too long in that form, they turn into zombies. But there's humans that survived. There's big mutant humans. But there's an appeal to the game, the players of the game, at least if you're a male. I don't know about females. I've never met a female that's played the game. That you're a nomadic person. You will have lost everything, right? You won't have a wife. You won't have a child in most cases. So there are those characters in the game, but it's not you. Fallout 4, you lose your wife and you're chasing your your newborn child that was abducted. But there's an allure to the world because all of the taxes are gone. All the government's gone. I think that's why there's an appeal to shows like Walking Dead. As much as you are dealing with herds of zombies that will eventually get you, you don't have the pressures of society on you. You can go wherever the hell you can go. In Fallout, it's very much like that. You can go and live in a little weird town and just sort of hunker down, build up your defenses, and hope that you don't get killed. And as much as that's horrific, there's an allure to the world because at least it's fair. You know the circumstances. You know the variables of your life. I can get killed by this, and this. Every human being that I'm with can, unless you're in Diamond City, can rob me. I guess the institution is the best place to live in that game. We've allowed our world to get out of control. And we've allowed it to get out of control to the point where there is a layer of people that we have ordained as more powerful than us at almost a celestial level. The fact that there are royal families on this planet that actually have laws that people obey that say that you can commit a crime but no one can press a charge against you because you're of the royal descent is one of the most astronomically insane things that we've ever done on this planet. Well, they're just immune from everything. Okay. Well, they're the rich man that wants to see the world burn. Because they've had it all. They've had it all forever. Nothing entertains them. I mean, ask the Queen. You know, you go up to her and say you make real good friends with her. Some weird, side relationship you end up forming somehow. And you're like, hey, you want to go to Japan? You want to go to Rome? Do you want to go to America? And she's going to look at you and go, no. Why? Why don't you want to go? Well, I've already been there. I've already been to all those countries 10, 20, 30 times, and I'm very content with where I live. I like my palace. I like to keep things comfortable. I've seen all that. The allure of all that's gone, to the wayside. What, do you want to go buy a really fancy car and race it real fast somewhere in the countryside? Maybe we can commandeer an airport and race Lamborghinis up and down? Nope. Nothing matters. You want to eat the fanciest meal in the world? Nope. You want to go buy some fancy clothes? Nope. What is left to entertain these people besides control? I want to run the world. I want to look at my Stratego tabletop with all the little pieces, which are all the people in the world, and I want to control that. Was it Prince Philip wrote the book in the 90s, his memoirs? I believe it was like 91 or something like that. In his book, he said, if I ever came back, was reincarnated, I'd come back as the virus to kill all of humanity. That's a little weird, don't you think? How do you think he got there? Kill all of humanity? Really? He didn't say kill everyone but white people. He said everybody, his own kind. He killed his wife. He killed his kids. Isn't that amazing? We don't think like they think, which is why they can rationalize things like we're going to let everyone off through some faux hearing. I'm beating this up from a lot of different angles, not to just fill up time, but to get you to think, to get you to see doors that you hadn't previously seen. They've been there the whole time. Doors to alternatives. But the first thing we have to do is spread the word. Spread the word that this is something that is unjust. It is there to satiate us. Technically speaking, the only law that's being broken by doing these faux hearings and all this faux hatred towards people breaking the law is that they don't press charges. You don't talk about, is it against the law to know that someone is a criminal, you've seen them red-handedly do something, and you don't press charges on them? Well, for us peasants, sheep and cattle, it's aiding and abetting. Perhaps after the fact. Your spouse comes home and says, honey, I just robbed a bank. I've got $1 million. Let's go live high on the hog. Or I'm going to put it away for a rainy day, or I'll save it for all of our kids in trust funds, or whatever. I'm donating it. But there was a crime there, and you don't say anything. You know that if they ever find out that he did that crime, they're coming right at you to say, did you know? Did you know he robbed that bank? Well, I did, but, he was my husband. He was my best bud, so I didn't say anything. Okay, well, turn around, put your hands on your head. Put your hands behind your back. You're going to jail too. You may not serve the full extent of their sentence, but you're going to get probably a 2/3 sentence. They get 20 years, you're getting 10. I had a friend of mine who dated a girl. She was in the back of a car in Las Vegas, I think, when they robbed a bank. Her friends went in, the guys went in and robbed a bank, and she's sitting in the back seat, according to her. And she got 9 years. They got 30. One guy got 20. She served 9.5 years in prison for just sitting in the back of a car. Well, I would say that all the people who know that these individuals have broken the law, who bring them into a Senate hearing and don't put them under oath, have these ridiculous conversations with them, when they're well aware, because they're part of intelligence committees that have been shown the actual red-handed proof of the crime, they're aiding and abetting. Perhaps the first thing that we do is we pass some new laws and statutes that say, if you know of a crime in government and you look the other way, you're going to get double, triple the sentence of those who committed it underneath you or beside you or above you. Wouldn't that change the day? One of the things I always tell my employees when I have them is, please do not cover up for a bad employee. And that does not mean that someone's had a really bad event in life and they're unable to do their job and we don't all pitch in to help out, right? That's not what I'm saying. Someone who's been paid to do a particular job and for whatever reason they're just lazy. And it'll happen where employees will complain about an employee, but they continually do their work. The problem that creates for upper management is that as a CEO, I can't figure out who the hell is doing their job. And I can't figure out how bad the person who needs to be fired is failing. So when I try to contemplate a termination or a warning, I don't really have all the data. Obviously, one can sit down and have extensive conversations, but here I am now having to do an investigative procedure within my own company to figure out, okay, what were they assigned? They're 2 layers below me, so I got to figure out what the manager assigned them. How well did they attempt to execute their job? Did they get any percentage of it done? Did we not train them properly? You go through all those logistics. But if no one covers for someone else, obviously within reason, okay, there's teamwork, of course. But if someone is just blatantly not doing their job, then we can blatantly see they're not doing their job and it comes up short and we go, what's up? You were assigned this. Why didn't you get this done? And maybe they have a good reason, maybe they don't. They were like, hey man, my wife just divorced me last night and she's going to take all the kids or whatever. My husband cheated on me or whatever, and it's really racking my whole soul and I can't concentrate. And then we all kind of give them a hug and say, okay, we're all going to chip in for you. But at least we know now, right? And, people won't always come forth with that information. They'll try to function underneath or above certain things that are eating their soul. But it's a very important process. In government, we have people colluding, breaking the law, or colluding to break the most valuable laws that we have in our respective countries, right? The big transformation that's going on is twofold in the world right now. The Great Awakening is two things. First phase is becoming aware of all the crimes that are being committed and by who, and what the huge spider web of people committing these crimes are. Like, where are all the nodes? You know, every time a spider web, let's just use that as an analogy, crosses over another wire, that's a little node where if you spray it with water, there's a little bead of water right there, right? But the crosshatches, that's just the connection between two people that are committing the crime. So we have to understand all the participants and how they're involved. We probably have some good people in government that have been forced by the deep state to participate in crimes at the threat of their own safety. There may be some immunity there. But the second thing that's happening in the Great Awakening, and it's the slowest part of the transformation, is figuring out where we can take action to fix things. That is a two-layer process. First layer is what I'm doing in this episode, which is making you aware of a shitty process that gets criminals off, right? And that's a double entendre if there ever was one. They don't pay any price for their crimes, and they are elated. That fucking smirk on Strzok's face, that smirk on James Comey's face, that's because they're sitting there going, you fuckers can't touch me. The previous administration just immunified me from all my crimes. You can't touch me unless you find a new crime. And boy, have I made sure you can't find those crimes. One of the things, before I shut up here, that saddens my soul is every time I hear someone say, write your senator. Write your senator and tell them that you want justice. Really? You think they give a fuck what you think? You think they even read that letter? The only times I've ever seen that work is when people stand outside police precincts protesting someone innocent that's been captured and put in jail because they happen to go against the state. They'll do it. They send a message to the person in the prison cell. We can get to you, man. You better shut up. Even if we let you go, because of all these protesters out front, you know you're watched. You know that we're in control. And like they said in Blade Runner, you're little people. Q has said something over and over, that we the people run this country. We run this world. Actually, he means the world. We're all patriots. Nobody wants to wake up with a threat next door, whether it be your neighbor or the country next door or someone around the other side of the world with a nuke on the back of a missile. We're not going to get that peace until we take action. We have to know how to take action. We don't want our world run by small claims courts, right? Where you walk in, you don't know what the hell you're doing. You plead with the judge to find the crime and to be victorious in judgment. We have to know the process. For those of you who know attorneys, I'm now starting to reach out to all my attorney friends, and man, the information coming back is profound to my life. Where I'll say, well, is this a crime? And they'll go, nope, that's bullshit. It's not a crime. Well, then why is it on the mass media? Because it's all bullshit. I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, where can we get these people? Well, this, and this, and this. And so I'm like, oh, shit, okay. So now I know kind of what the procedures are. I've got one of my buddies that's high enough up there. He knows all forms of law. He has explained to me the layers within government that these people hide under and how it works. Q's been very helpful in helping us understand how immunity has been given away, like candy. We have the power. We really do. We need to educate those who are ordained in this world with handcuffs. That's probably the easiest way to say it. Those in military, those in police, those in government who are new and fresh and idealistic, those in local law, those in state law, those in federal law. If you know these people, if you lay in bed with these people at night, and somehow you get this message, then you are a great influencer to those people. Why were they really worried about Monica Lewinsky in the White House passing out blowjobs, right? Why were they worried about that? Because I was definitely a Clinton supporter in the 90s. I was totally asleep, didn't know anything about all of his arc-inciting shit. But someone told me, they said, you have to give a shit about this. And I said, why? And he goes, because those blowjobs are more powerful than you could possibly imagine. If she were to be, she wasn't, but if she were to be a double agent, for instance, and maybe she's just a country girl who's swooned by his charm, then no big deal. She's just a person with amazingly low self-esteem, right? But if she were to be approached by a foreign nation, some lobbyist, and say, look, I hear you have a relationship with Clinton. You don't have to answer that question, but we hear that that's what's going on. Well, we will put $1 million every quarter into a bank account in Switzerland in your name if you will simply nudge him in conversation, nudge him before a blowjob, that you sure would like it if this would happen. You sure would like it if that would happen. And he has to agree to it before he gets the next BJ. And then results have to happen before you continue to give him BJs. And he gets off on the idea that he has power and he can actually do it. He doesn't even care about the agenda. It just becomes a little game to get a blowjob. And that changed my whole perspective on the whole thing. When you serve government, everything should be transparent as possible. How do you handle matters of national security? I don't know. I think that in this last year and a half, we've had a lot of those agendas of our country exposed in tweets by Donald Trump. He's flat out saying, you do that, you're going to suffer. But if you do this, we're going to be friends. Let's be friends. And he's putting it out there. Now, exactly what would take place to make a threat real, like bombing, a country or something, no, we're not going to know what the military is planning, right? They're not going to tell us, okay, we've got this site, that site, this site. We're going to go in this stage first, pincer that, have a phalanx, right? They won't tell us. I don't think we need to know exactly how that would go down, but at least we would have a transparent relationship with all the other countries of the world so we know. All right, I thought we were in a huge battle with Mexico recently, that this wall was going to frustrate the shit out of everybody, send a wrong message to Mexico, and the trade agreement would explode, and we might have like this little war on the border or something like that. Well, he made a phone call yesterday in front of the press, and he's cranked out a new trade deal. The president of Mexico seems to be pretty satisfied. Did he get everything he wanted? Probably not. Did we get everything we wanted? Probably not. But it was transparent to a degree. Of course, they're rehearsed speeches on both sides of the phone call. But when's the last time you ever saw that in the public eye? Right? Someone just came out and showed us what's going to happen. All right, I slept a little better last night, knowing that we've kind of subdued that. NAFTA being destroyed, right? As Ross Perot said back in the 90s, if NAFTA gets passed, you're going to hear a big sucking sound out of the United States. And that's exactly what took place. Now that sucking sound is going the opposite direction. It's pulling everything back into the United States. And we're eventually going to get over all these trade deals. They're calling it trade wars. There really aren't. They're negotiations, and they're negotiations over tens of hundreds of billions of dollars. Of course there's going to be tension. Really? If you got, if you retired at, say, 30 years old with $1 million coming in a year from some weird agency, and I come by later on and say, you know what, that's not fair to everyone else who's paying that $1 billion. They don't really want to give you that money, and you don't really need it. You're going to fight to keep it. And eventually you're going to go through the full Kubler-Ross effect, and you're going to accept it at the end. I know you feel me. Now let's spread the word. Let's add more DNA to this. I just put up a skeleton. Please, please, please. The comments have been a little light on the subject matters that I'm talking about. One of you made a comment that some of the episodes in season 4, there's only been 4, have been a little scatterbrained, little abstract. I do apologize. Sometimes I go into subjects that are tough to to wrangle down into a charter, right? I'd have to spend an enormous amount of time probably creating an agenda, scripting all my words, blah, blah, blah. The whole beauty of this show, in my opinion, is it's a free-form conversation, right? Solutions, that's what we need. Methodology, that's what we need. If you're an attorney, please weigh in of either how crazy I am, idealistic I am, or if you see some legitimacy to this entire theme of this episode, please comment. If you're not an attorney, but you're married to one, you know one, pass the link to them and say, look, this guy's kind of weird, he's in black and white, but listen to this episode and let me know what the hell we can do. Or, they never watch this show because they're not YouTubers or whatever, podcasters, and you simply explain it to them. Then bring the information to us so that we can hear, we can engage in a group discussion about this. It's super duper important. We have to end these plea deals that get everyone scot-free for horrible crimes. I can't watch shows like The Daily Show anymore. When I was asleep, I was totally addicted to those shows. I can't listen to talk radio anymore because all they do is sit and complain and nothing ever happens. Hit piece books, Sometimes they have interesting facts. Usually the Cliff Notes are the most I want to get involved with it. They say that, I can definitely tell you, I recently engaged in a trade show in Australia, and I had to participate in the construction of the booth, because you just do. All of us are there, and we're just helping out and taking it down after it was done. And it was one of these things. One of my buddies said, I like this kind of labor because it really gives me a sense of a job well done at the end of the day. He's a salesman, and so his whole thing is he has to nurture sales for months and months and months, and he doesn't get a closure. Sometimes sales don't go through, and other times they do, but it takes months. When I used to make video games, it would take up to 2 years to make a game. The last game I made for my own company took 5 years. And just begging and borrowing money to get it all funded, right? And then it did well for about a year, and then it kind of fell off because everybody got tired. The changes we needed to make the game super addictive at the end, everybody was like, I don't have any more time, I don't have any more money, I can't do this anymore. Getting justice to go all the way through is a job well done. It's correcting our society and preventing these crimes from continuing. This idea that you're too big to go down has got to go down. Too big to fail. Corporations that are subsidized by our country. There is some logic to that in some cases, right? If the company hasn't engaged in crimes or neglect of their own product, and they're trying as hard as they possibly can to be successful, and it's important to our country as a strategic product that we want to sell to reinforce our gross national product or gross domestic product, then we should consider, okay, my taxes are going to go through some subsidizing program to help Ford Motor Company or something like that, right? But there's stipulations on the money. Make a goddamn good car, would you? Stop building everything to fall apart, would you? Right? We have an opportunity coming up to restructure at least the United States of America in the short term, but every other country in the planet in the long term. And the needs to change are becoming very apparent in the EU countries, in the UK, in Australia. I'd say Asia is pretty much succeeding in everything that they're trying to do. All their strategies are working. Okay. There's no crime in that. They're their own sovereign being. As long as we allow them to do what they do, they're not breaking the law. But if we can get justice served and get rid of the swamp through criminal prosecution, if nothing else, forbidding them from taking office again, forbidding them to act as a lobbyist again, forbidding them from being involved with a particular industry. If you ran Enron at the top, you should never be able to participate in any sort of corporation of like mind because you're a criminal. if you don't go to jail to begin with. If you're a person that does what you're told and you don't have any moral base to evaluate what you're told, then you'll do anything. You'll help the world burn. You'll pass out the torches, right? Anyway, that's that subject. If you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, please go. The episodes are going to start to flood out again. I want to thank you guys for hanging on during these sort of big pauses here. Lots of subjects to talk about. I've actually got to go through your comments again and harvest all the ideas that were coming in while I was out of town, because you guys are putting together some really great episodes for me. Super duper appreciate that. Keep those suggestions coming. If I don't do a total episode dedicated to your idea, what will most likely occur is that I will embed your idea in a digression or some related subject matter. So keep listening, keep watching episodes, because your idea will most likely surface, and I'll try to give credit where I can. I do apologize for not naming your names, because I'll see it 3 weeks ago. I'll know that suggestion was made, but I don't remember the cryptic handle you have on YouTube. So if I'm talking about you, and feel free to take credit to whomever, because you guys make this show possible. But on the website, it's audio, video. There's a podcast you can just click on to get going. There's a Patreon store for everyone who's supporting me on Patreon. Thank you so much. It just blows me away. I feel super duper honored, more by the gesture than anything else, that you would sacrifice $1 a month. It does help. It does help. I appreciate it. But anyway, take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over now.